I'm joined by Democratic Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger of Virginia's 7th Congressional District. Congresswoman Spanberger is also running for governor in the great state of Virginia. Congresswoman, you also spent your career working at the CIA, so you're uniquely positioned to answer some of these questions that all of our viewers are having, especially with Donald Trump's recent appointment. So I just want to get your take on his nomination of Tulsi Gabbard to be the Director of National Intelligence.
It's a shocking but not wholly surprising nomination. And I say that as an issue of national security. That is not a partisan issue. That's not a political issue. That's not it's a Donald Trump nomination issue. It is objectively a problem that he has nominated her to be the DNI, and it is a dangerous possibility that she might be confirmed for that role. Full stop.
So let's talk about what that role is. A lot of acronyms. What does the DNI do? What do they oversee? What type of intelligence do they have?
Well, that's an excellent question, because I think that, we've seen a lot of people react publicly to some of the other nominations because, frankly, some of the other folks, some of the other roles, they're far more public. And so people know what an attorney general is. They're used to seeing one on television, et cetera. But the DNI is a very unique and very important role. So in the aftermath of 9/11, when the 9/11 Commission came together and said, what were the shortcomings? How did we miss this? How did this happen that we had this massive attack on U.S. soil? And one of the recommendations moving forward was to create the ODNI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and to have the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, be the person overseeing our nation's intelligence community. And so every function of it, that, of course, CIA and NSA, but the elements of intelligence collection or intelligence work that happens across all agencies that do any intelligence community work. And the purpose was to ensure that there was a central office and a central person that was responsible for ensuring that, if one entity receives reporting on this, that it's followed up on, that it's incorporated into intelligence reports, that analysts at, CIA are getting some of the reports that might be really timely and really important, but might be coming from a different agency. And in this role, the DNI has to have an extraordinary understanding of the intelligence community. They are given the absolute access to every intelligence effort that our nation is undertaking, all of our sources, all of our methods, all of the secrets that help keep the United States safe. This one role sees it all, sees everything. And so it's an extraordinarily important job, but it's an extraordinarily kind of behind the scenes job. Usually the DNI annually will have what's called the Worldwide Threats hearing. And so that's a hearing when the DNI comes before Congress, typically with the director of CIA and the director of the FBI, sometimes other members of the intelligence community, and they will testify before Congress about the threats that exist to the United States, to our interests on the worldwide stage. And there's a public element of that. And it is the kind of one notable public hearing that happens annually related to the intelligence community and the threats facing the United States. And so there's one public portion, unclassified, and then there is a classified portion before the Intelligence Committee, where, as a current member of the Intelligence Committee, we dig deep into the threats that face the United States of America. And it is the DNI who is the one answering question after question after question about what the threats are and how we as a nation are addressing them, and how we as a nation are going after the answers to some of the questions that we need to answer in order to be able to keep our country safe. And so it's a role that's very much out of the public limelight and the kind of public purview, but it is extraordinarily important. And this role has extraordinary access, certainly not just to the secrets that help keep the United States safe, but also the secrets that our partners and allies share with us.
Now, Tulsi Gabbard, she was once a Democrat. Just interesting side note, when she first ran, I remember that she threw a fundraising event in Los Angeles when I was a new lawyer at one of these hotel rooftop bars. And everybody was telling me that, she's an up and coming star in the Democratic Party. I remember it vividly. I remember meeting her, I want to say 2011 and 2012, when some of these Democratic consultants out here said, you just got to meet her. And they were trying to introduce her to the legal community. But over time, you mentioned the threats to our nation, people like former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and others were saying that there's someone in the Democratic Party who seems to be being groomed by Russia, who seems to be compromised by foreign adversaries. And to say that they were intimating it was Tulsi is giving a lot of stress on the word intimating, because a lot of people have said that she's compromised. Now, I've seen her posts. They're very pro-Russia. I've seen her statements. They're word for word Russia propaganda. We could pull up some right here where she goes, the unlawful invasion, she doesn't call it that. She goes, the war and suffering in Ukraine could have just been avoided if Biden administration and NATO acknowledged Russia's legitimate security concerns. So it was NATO's fault. She blamed NATO. And then she spewed the lies about Ukrainian biolabs and the stuff that Putin was putting out there. But tell us, though, about the threat that she specifically poses, because I don't want to be hyperbolic when I say I think she's compromised. I really want to know, and I think our viewers want to know, why is she specifically a threat? What is it about her?
Well, she's, unbelievably unqualified for this role. But let me just walk through a couple examples of why, apart from having absolutely no background in the realm of intelligence. And for those who may not be familiar, if I can just go on a little bit of a side discussion on this, for those who may not be familiar with the DNI role. The DNI role, again, it was created after 9/11. Those who have filled this role in the past, Negroponte, right? Career public servant across government, across roles within the national security and the defense space. DNI Clapper, who I once had the occasion of briefing. He was the director of DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. He was the director of NGA, National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. He was appointed to those roles, and then he was a undersecretary at the Department of Defense. He was appointed to those various roles by George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, right? Recognizing the breadth and scope of his lifetime of service and his deep knowledge of the intelligence community, the threats that face the United States, et cetera. Like, that's the type of person and the type of biography that have previously filled this role. The current DNI, Avril Haines, right? She has a long and fulsome background in the intelligence community. She was at CIA, where she was, had so much experience with her role at the agency. And so this is the type of background, right? So again, it's not about political party. It's not about somebody's political affiliation, and it's not about President-elect Trump. It's about the fact that throughout the short history of this role, serious people have been placed in this role. And in fact, the first CNI appointed under then President Trump was Dan Coats. So a former Republican senator who served for many years. So yes, aligned with the president, but he served on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and he had been an ambassador overseas, a breadth of experience. He'd worked, back and forth with foreign allies and partners. He had experience in the realm of intelligence because of the committee he served on. And so that's the type of person, even when they have a partisan background and a political background, that's the type of person who has historically been chosen for this role. Now, then we have someone like Gabbard, who, as a sitting member of Congress, went to Syria and sat down with Bashar al-Assad shortly after he used chemical weapons against his own civilian population, which is out of step and out of alignment with U.S. policy, first and foremost, out of step and out of alignment with the protocols that are in place to ensure that our ambassadors and our Secretary of State and all those who work in the diplomatic realm, let alone the defense realm, are not having sort of lone actors going to a foreign country, meeting with a authoritarian dictator who uses chemical weapons on his own people, and then comes home and says, oh, if the United States would just meet with him, surely we could get this all worked out. Then Gabbard is also someone who time and time and time again has trafficked in conspiracy theories, has used almost word for word the propaganda put out by the Kremlin and Russian state TV. And so whatever the motivation is behind it, whether it is truly aligned with her belief system, whether she thinks it's comical to get people like me and other folks riled up worrying about her being a national security risk, whatever the motivation is,